All right, welcome to the Unwatchables. I'm Matt, and I'm here with Marcus and Kylie.
Hello.
Hi there.
And today we will be looking at Ready Player One as a no-timer and Finding Dory as a one-timer. So let's start off with Ready Player One. Why is this movie a no-timer?
I think there's a lot of reasons why it's a no-timer. First off, I think the film looked really bad. The CG, looked really, terrible. And, I don't know what's been going on with Spielberg, I feel like, since, the year 2000, but, a lot of his big-budget films, have you guys noticed there's, a lot of, gray overlay?
Mm-hmm. A little darker.
Well, I mean, not, even, darker. Remember, World of Worlds or,
It's extremely monochromatic. It's just very dull, kind of two-dimensional.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, very gray, and, it almost looks like you're going through, a fog machine has just entered into every scene, right?
Big departure from what we usually see with Spielberg.
Well, good Spielberg.
Yeah, classic Spielberg.
Well, that's the thing. There's that classic Spielberg doesn't exist anymore. I was looking at. I think there's another big problem with the film is Spielberg himself. I don't think he can direct big budget good films anymore. I looked up the list since 2000. You know the big budget films he's done, Indiana Jones 4, BFG, Big Friendly Giant, right? Mm-hmm. He did Tintin, World of Worlds, and this. I never saw Tintin, but BFG was horrible. Indiana Jones 4 was awful.
Yeah, Spielberg might not have it anymore. But then his smaller movies are good.
Well, that's the thing.
The Post.
It's a tale of two Spielbergs. The Spielberg that does Lincoln and Catch Me If You Can was amazing, and then
the sellout Spielberg.
Yeah,
that does
the sellout Spielberg.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of Ready Player One, I agree. Way too much CG. Well, I mean, the whole movie was going to be CG, but it was it looked like a really good... I didn't even look like a good video game. It just looked like a video game.
It looked like a PS3 video game.
Yeah. I really didn't like the Shining part. I wasn't a fan of that.
It wasn't necessary.
Yeah, and it was strange, and I think that's the whole thing that I don't like with the movie is the unnecessary massive references that are just in there for fun.
Yeah, honestly, it kind of took me out of it every time because there was that part with Chucky where he started murdering people, and then there was even a little cameo with, I think, Freddy Krueger and Jason, too, just amongst the giant battle scene.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's kind of cool, but for a second, you're like, oh, look, it's them. But then you're like, oh, wait, what's happening in the movie?
Yeah.
It was just way too many references like that.
I think, one thing about that, too, is, I mean, it's weird for Spielberg to, reference his own work. I mean, isn't that, kind of weird? Mm-hmm. They're driving a DeLorean being chased by a T-Rex. Yeah. And Spielberg helped to make Jurassic Park and Back to the Future.
Yeah.
That whole race scene was really weird for me. There was this one part where I think he was going backwards, and it was the first time anyone had tried that, and there was absolutely no music. It was just him going through in the car making noise, and there was no music, and so the pacing was just super, super weird, because it was supposed to be really exciting, and he'd found out this big clue, and...
when he's, going under the tunnel,
it was just, right? Yeah, there was no music in that scene. I don't know if you guys noticed, but it was just really weird.
Yeah, I just, the whole idea of the movie, the messaging, I still think it would have made more sense for the Oasis just to be shut down at the end of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know the bookends, but I don't like the ending. It's well, we're going to keep it open 2 days or 3 days out of the week or whatever he says, or it's...
They said they're going to close it on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh, right.
So that, yeah, people experience their real life more, but what about the people that, their only days off work are Tuesdays and Thursdays? Well, too bad.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I mean, why not just set a limit to how many days people can play or something and let them choose?
But the whole movie is talking about... It's this, you have this virtual separation, and there's obviously there's a lot of negativity with diving into that, especially represented just in the corporation and the bad guys and everything. And I thought it was more about having that human connection, that's what it was about, and accepting someone for who they are and what they actually look like. And I feel like none of that matters because of the end of it, because they didn't kill the Oasis.
Well, I think it's
just not important.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because it's Crispin Glover, you've heard the whole controversy at the end of Back to the Future, right? He originally disagreed with Robert Zemeckis when he was Zemeckis, the original plot, which we end up seeing anyways in the film, was that, Marty ends up with the car and the girl, right? well, like Crispin Glover was like, oh, this kind of sets the tone. Then like, what's the purpose of the movie? The purpose of the movie then becomes like materialism, right, and material gain. So yeah, you're right. Like in that film, like, what's the message? Like, if you play enough video games, like you'll eventually like make it up on top. Make, you'll get off like.
That was the problem with the ending. And everybody, it's this idea of everybody being someone that they're not because it's who they want to be or that's how they fit in. And I mean, obviously, you can compare it to a lot of things today with social media because people live online a lot of the times, but it didn't. I guess, didn't really take a stance against it, but the whole movie they were taking a stance against it.
Yeah, and then at the end they just kind of like glorified it a little bit.
Yeah, it's all glorified.
Yeah. So like if you're like a guy, like if you're a normal person that lives in that world, like how is your life even any different after what they did other than now the Oasis is turned off Tuesdays and Thursdays?
And the creator wasn't
Halliday?
Yeah, so didn't they say in the movie like the biggest thing he was afraid of was
Kissing a
like
girl?
kissing a girl, right? I was going to say talking to a kissing girl. And I think it's interesting, like, so this Oasis is created where he can sort of live out the life that he should be living in his real life. And I think it's important to say, instead of living your online life, you should deal with your problems in reality. And I thought that's what they were moving towards. And, if this guy has trouble kissing a girl, it's not a good thing to dive into this virtual world and ignore all your issues. But it didn't. It basically said just keep ignoring your issues and continue to live online.
There were just so many plot holes with the ending too. When he was getting the egg from him and Halliday was exiting, he said, "You're not a part of the simulation, are you?" And he goes, "No." And then he goes, "What are you?" And he just says goodbye. And it's just this completely
ambiguous.
unnecessary mystery that they just bring up at the end.
Trying to
Like,
make
what
it,
are you
like,
supposed to
become, like, a
learn from
wisdom or
that?
something,
Yeah. What are you supposed to learn from that?
Well, do you think like Kai, like would you say like do you think that the film suffered more from like execution or like do you think like the screenplay and the story itself was just kind of flawed?
I think it was really flawed. There were so many plot holes, especially towards the end. And for what they were trying to do, I think the execution was alright. But the story was just so lacking.
No, I mean, I agree. I think this film really suffered from both. Like, I looked up the screenwriters. We already talked about this a little bit. Like, the screenwriters of this movie, Ready Player One. Like, the one guy, I think, is, like, a notoriously bad screenwriter. Like, he wrote Elektra with Jennifer Garner from, like, the mid-2000s. He wrote X-Men 3. Like, a bunch of other, like, bad movies.
The Bad Hulk.
Yeah, he wrote the 2008
Eric
Hulk.
Bana Hulk, yeah.
No, he wrote the Edward Norton.
Oh, the Edward Norton.
Yeah. And then, like, the other screenwriter for the film, the guy that got the credit was the guy that wrote the book. And, like, I just really don't know, like Matt, are there a lot of, like, great screenwriters who also, like, are good at writing books? Or, like, novelists that can, like, transfer over? Because, like, I can't really think of, like, that many.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any really off the top of my head.
J.K. Rowling is the only one that comes to mind, really, because she helped a lot with the screenplays for Harry Potter.
Okay.
But that's really the only one that comes to mind. I think, what's his name? Rick Riordan? He wrote the Percy Jackson books. Those movies were pretty bad. I think I'm saying his last name wrong.
That's all right. That's all right. I mean, it's like, Stephen King. Like, how many good screenplays has he worked on?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's produced a lot. Although, I mean, the one movie that he actually made was that, like, killer truck movie.
Killer Truck, yeah.
Which was really bad. But yeah, I mean, adapting is a different thing.
Yeah.
Writing in a book is different than a screenplay, of course, because you're talking about a visual medium.
I just feel like this movie was like, it almost had like the anti All-Stars came together to make this film. Like, Spielberg is awful at big budget films. Like, that guy that wrote the Ready Player One book obviously isn't a good screenwriter, and that other guy isn't like a well-known bad screenwriter. Like, I feel like you brought them all together, and like, how are you gonna make a good movie with those guys?
I don't know. I guess they were failing before they even started.
Like, how could you have ever had it
together?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, how could you ever even like make that like work?
You can't. You get a really big budget and hope for the best.
Yeah, I think
suppose.
I do think at least like a lot of international markets, like they buy up CG heavy movies. I've seen that a lot in the past, so I was expecting this movie to do better overseas. And it didn't really have that reach at all.
Well, it did far better overseas because it made like over like $500 million.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
wow.
And like
what did it do?
300, I think 300 or plus was international.
I would have pinged it for a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, that movie too, like I think it opened #1, but like I think it had a pretty big steep drop off after like a couple weeks. Like the first weekend was by over 50 or 60%.
Yeah. Oh well. I didn't like the music either. Just a lot of the aesthetics and everything, and a lot of the execution. I did not like the character designs, especially the lead.
Like when they were in the Oasis.
Yeah,
and they
the
looked
Oasis
blue.
ones. Yeah, I was just
That was really dumb looking.
It's just they looked lame. Though he looked like the guy from what's that? The animated kids movie about the winter guys. What is that called?
Whatever.
The Guardians. The whatever. Yeah, the Guardians.
Like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think it's just called The Guardians.
The Guardians, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
he looked like Jack Frost from that movie.
Yeah, that's the movie where
yeah.
like Alec Baldwin is Santa or something like that.
Yeah.
It's an animated film. The guy that did that is doing the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he looked a lot like that. That's what I was thinking the whole time I was watching the movie.
Yeah, no, the design was like really like the girl's design and his design looked like cheap knockoff fishmen. Like they look like fish people.
Yeah, they look strange.
They look like the sea creatures from Zelda. Like
well, and they also, I mean, to me, just like as a gamer, they didn't speak like in any way. I mean, I don't know what they were going for, but the movie's obviously about like video games. I mean, the Oasis is a massive video game. I don't know why they didn't. It didn't feel enough like a character from a video game to me.
Well, how do you think? What would have made that more believable?
Probably tone down their designs. I don't know, make them a little more human.
Or make him like big and buff?
Yeah, maybe. I
Like
mean,
what kind of guy in real life like that's not very tall makes an avatar of himself that's like wimpier and shorter than himself in real life?
yeah.
Yeah, and skinny.
Yeah,
Just
wouldn't
a
you make
little guy.
yourself like the opposite of what you are?
Some
Or,
people
like-
make them
Yeah.
exactly how they look. But even just like if you look at games like I don't know, like League of Legends or World of Warcraft, like those characters, like they look of that world. You know, I guess since it was just like a massive combination,
Yeah.
it felt too messy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that, and I also think like the plot of like, and Kylie mentioned this earlier, like them going backwards, like if Spielberg spent any time looking up like games and like Easter eggs, like people would have found that out like within one day. To
I
go
know.
backwards,
It wouldn't take 5 years.
yeah, exactly,
If
would not
everyone's
take
been
that
researching
long.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point. I mean, people like they find everything within a game with like the week it launches for the most part.
people
I mean,
data mine like what do they call that? Like when the beta, like people data mine betas
Yeah.
for games and find out all the characters that are in them.
there are some things like there are Easter eggs that like I'll read every now and then on like Polygon or IGN that like there's these Easter eggs that come up like a game from like 5 or 10 years ago.
Mm.
But I mean that was like the goal in the game was to win the race. You know, I mean that totally would have been
Like
figured
somebody
out.
would have tried that out
Yeah.
earlier. Yeah.
Mhm. I feel like with the world that they had, I mean, supposedly in the Oasis, it seemed like anything was possible, and so why were people, designing themselves as wimpy? And I don't know, if you can do anything in that world, why not? And there's also that scene where they're all lined up to play that old video game. Do you remember?
Oh, like at the end?
Yeah, at the end. And wouldn't they have figured out some way to code it so that they wouldn't have to wait in line, or there'd be some other, more efficient way to do things? It wasn't really very realistic.
The movie takes place in the year 2045, so you raise a really
Yeah.
good point. Like, this is almost 30 years from now.
Use your imagination a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess.
And that's the other thing, too. Like, I feel like all the pop references, I think this is one reason why the movie kind of failed, is, like, the movie is playing on, like, 80s and 70s nostalgia, but, like, in the year 2045, are people going to be nostalgic for things that happened 70 years ago?
No.
I mean, wouldn't they be
think
nostalgic
so.
for stuff today?
I know. And another thing is, I feel like, I'm 19. I feel like this movie was geared towards my age group because my age group, I feel, is really involved in video games. But most of the references, they happened before we were born. So
Yeah.
it's hard for us to appreciate it because I probably didn't even catch most of them.
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of the modern references were really, really quick. I know, like, the Overwatch characters got, like, 2 or 3 shots. Yeah, there was Master Chief. They did choose the new Turtles,
Yeah. But, like, if you look,
which
like...
I don't know was a good thing.
Like, Kylie raises a good point. Like, when he throws the bomb, right? Like, when he's, does the countdown thing and throws the bomb towards the end. Like, that's from, like, Monty Python, right? And like that film, like a lot of people don't even know what Monty Python even is that are younger.
No, I've heard of it, but
Yeah,
I
exactly.
definitely
Like,
wouldn't catch the reference.
That reference is for
Yeah,
like
the grenade thing.
yeah, but even then too, like in the honest trailer for on Screen Junkies, they talk about that like they do the countdown wrong because like isn't in Monty Python don't they say 1 2 5?
I think so. Yeah.
And then in this movie it was like 1 2 3 and he presses the cross right and then kind of throws it.
Yeah.
Can't even get the references.
Yeah, I
right.
didn't even get the reference right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Spielberg was like a 28-year-old man when that movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you definitely raised a very good point that who is this movie made for?
It's really confusing. It's hard to tell.
Like who are they? Like is it like teens, like late 20s, like our 40-year-olds? They get the references of Tab and like a Dig Dug and appreciate Chucky. Like, are they watching that movie?
Dig Dug in
I
that movie?
guess.
Maybe it wasn't.
No, I mean,
you know, honestly, this movie kind of reminds me of a little bit of Pixels.
yeah.
Like, who was Pixels made for?
I never saw that.
I mean, Pixels, I think, had a straight, like, more of an idea of who it was for.
I
would
agree
say
with you, yeah.
older, I mean, at least reference-wise, it spoke to older...
Well, Pixels, I think, was clearly
older
meant for,
audience.
like mid to late, mid-20s to, like, almost 40.
Yeah, I mean...
Like, people that have, like, Adam Sandler for
anybody
years.
who was around for arcades, you know? I mean, that was enough.
Yeah, and maybe, like, Adam Sandler fans, maybe, right? Like, if you want to, like, mix those two, perhaps.
Is that a thing?
Adam Sandler? Well, there's a lot of people out there that still hold on to Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison.
Those are great movies.
Yeah, but like I feel like Pixels. Like now I'm thinking
But
about
I didn't
that,
go
even though
watch
that
the
movie
movie
wasn't even good. That movie was better than this movie.
Pixels was better than this movie. Especially when the creator of Pac-Man got eaten by Pac-Man.
That was only his hand.
Yeah, whatever.
And then what's that guy? What was that? Cubert?
Oh yeah, Cubert was in it. Oh, I forgot
And then
about
he turns
that. That was
into a
weird.
woman.
Yeah, and they have Cubert babies? Ew, that was weird.
Dude, out of like all these like video game like movie crossovers like Ready Player One and Wreck-It Ralph and like Pixels, dude, like I think we should stop at this trend, dude.
I liked the first Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah, Wreck-It Ralph 1 was good. Wreck-It Ralph 2 looks...
Two's shaping up to be bad.
Dude, that's shaping up to be on the Unwatchables. Dude, like...
Maybe we'll be talking about it.
Well, like even like their references to the internet's like over. Like the internet has everything, and it's like... Dude, Futurama did an episode about that in 2001, about the internet, and that was even like timely then. Like,
Yeah.
everybody knows about the internet today. Like, every grandmother
Nothing
has the
special.
internet.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, I mean, do you feel like in Hollywood, do they just, like, get so far behind trends? Like for example, like, people texting, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like they don't get texting right in movies either.
Honestly,
Like, a lot of movies, they don't get, like, how people actually are on their phones.
I don't think they do, but, like, at the same time, I don't even think, like, texting, like, talking about that and showing texting in a movie, I don't really think that's a place for it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, but the movies that, like, talk about texting, I feel like they always show it, like, stupid. Like, it doesn't look good a lot of times.
Oh, they have, like, the bubbles pop up next to them.
Yeah.
Which dates it, no matter how they make the graphics for it.
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly,
It's
right?
never really going to be accurate.
Yeah.
Just dates it.
It's strange. That's why it's just, creative-wise, I don't think it's a good decision to ever have that in a movie.
I just feel like with, like, all these, like, recent trends, like, the video game stuff, like, the old references, they just, like, really age really badly. And I feel like Ready Player One, like, even if a person did like it, who's gonna go back and watch that? Like, 3 years from now, who's gonna watch Ready Player One on Netflix?
Somebody might, if they didn't watch it and they see it come up, like, I think, like, the whole reference idea is enough to have someone click
To
it.
bring them in? That was enough to sell the movie, I guess.
Yeah. Would I say that's a good idea? No.
What's the next Ready Player One coming out? Is there a new one after Wreck-It Ralph 2, I guess?
Another, like, video game movie?
Yeah, like reference movie.
Oh, a reference movie? No, can't think of anything.
Let's hope to God there are no more then. I mean, that's ultimately like...
If they're gonna be this bad. I mean, there's a reason why all of those movies have existed separately this whole time.
Yeah, but...
Putting that much stuff in one movie just kind of doesn't make the other all the properties in it aren't special anymore.
Well, I feel like in all these movies that have like cameos and references, like I feel like the more you do it, it's like the laws of like diminishing return. Like the more you do it, the less it means, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like Elton John being a character in like Kingsman 2, right?
Yeah.
Like it just like it doesn't mean anything anymore, right? Like, he's playing himself.
Yeah.
Alright, well, I guess that's probably about it for Ready Player One.
Okay, so now on to Finding Dory as a one-timer. Which means it's worth watching once. Taking the time to watch it once.
You're right.
Why?
Well, I mean, I don't. Well, I feel like with this movie, it just. I mean, without like jumping ahead, I just feel like it was just like incredibly mediocre. Like, what do you think about it, Kylie? I don't know. I mean, I'm just like this. I mean, we're obviously gonna depack it later, unpack it as we go. But yeah, what were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, initially it's a world that I loved. You know, I grew up with Finding Nemo, and, you know, it has the actors that I love and remember, but ultimately it was a little bit too hectic. The plot was a little bit too convenient. So overall, it was just pretty mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, it's just simply with this movie. I mean, again, I mean, I guess all films are made to make money. Like, even like art house films and like Academy Award type movies are all made to make money, right? Like, that's what the studios are there for. Like, but Finding Nemo, like, or Finding Dory, like, I just feel like, I don't know, like, what's the point of this movie? Like, I mean, like, what are you trying to walk away with this from? Like, if you think about, like, from the beginning to the end, like, what has, like, ultimately happened to these characters? Like, they already, like, if you think about, like, from the first film, right? Like, Marlin has a clear arc, right? Like, in the first film, Marlin, he loses his wife and he's overprotective of Nemo. Then he loses Nemo and has to search for Nemo, right? And kind of in a sense, like, he's kind of giving up some of that, like, authoritative slash like really like attached to Nemo kind of. He kind of gives it up a little bit as he's seeking Nemo out. Like, if you think about this film, like what are the arcs and like what's accomplished? Like, the only thing that's accomplished is like Dory finds her parents, and like it's just a like what you mentioned earlier. Like, it's just a very like convenient plot point. Like, we've never heard about them in the first film. It's like all of a sudden now it's like, I need to find my parents, and it's like, why kind of.
I mean, she does mention, I think, in the first movie, like, she can't remember her family, or
She
doesn't
got
know where
lost
they
from
are.
school or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, her arc in the first movie is finding a family. Isn't that her thing?
Yeah, that's another good point too. Yeah, her arc is like, yeah, like, even though she's not romantically involved with Marlin, because they're like, you know, different types of fish. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that might, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know how to describe it. I mean, like, I don't think those two fish can mate, but like, I mean, yeah, she does kind of get that like sense of like community. Like, when this film picks up, she's living in like essentially like Nemo's house, isn't she? Or like nearby. She's like his neighbor, and she's like actively involved in the community of fish, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then going back to that with Marlin, he went through the whole arc in the first movie, and then right off the bat in Finding Dory, he just seems like a controlling jerk again, because the reason she gets lost is because he says, well, why don't you just go forget, it's what you do best. And you're just kind of back to square one with him, so it's really not about him and Nemo at all. This movie is just all about Dory.
Doesn't he say like that same line in the first movie? Like when they have an argument?
Yeah, he does.
Something along those
like
lines.
that,
Yeah, to like bug off or something.
Yeah. So he learns nothing. Dory, I don't know, it's not like she learns anything. It's not like her memory gets any better, because we get through this movie based on her flashbacks, and that's how she finds her parents, I suppose. But all of it is just so convenient, because even with the shells in the tank, you know, what they stayed there for years, the shells that her parents laid out, and I don't know, everything is just extremely convenient, and it's hard to suspend the disbelief when that happens.
Yeah, it just seems like, yeah, with like all his Pixar sequels, like, they just seem like a big notch below like the Pixar films of 10 years ago. Like, I know a lot of people really liked Coco and oh jeez, what's that movie called with the emotions?
Oh, Inside Out.
Yeah, Inside Out. Like, a lot of people like that, and they liked Coco, but like, I just feel like this
Coco
decade.
was good.
I just feel like this decade, Pixar overall has been like a really big notch below where they were last decade. I mean, am I wrong, Matt? What do you think?
Yeah, they have not recaptured their same magic they did with their first films.
Yeah,
Like all the classic, I guess, Pixar movies. It's strange that they say that now. You know, now there's like the modern Pixar movies, and there's like the old classic ones. They've gotten to that point now, I think.
See, I would almost say like, yeah, like The Division, what we're talking about would almost be like Pixar from Toy Story 1 to maybe even like Toy Story 3.
Yeah, you could say that.
Like, because everything after that, like, then that's when you start having Cars 2, Cars 3, Monsters University.
Good Dinosaur.
Yeah, Good Dinosaur, Brave,
Brave wasn't terrible.
See, I thought Brave was awful.
It was just so strange, you know. I liked it.
It was very pointless.
I liked how the mom, you know, the whole bear mom thing, but it was.
See, I thought that was just really dumb. Like, it
so
didn't feel like
weird.
anything.
No, well,
to
it definitely didn't feel like a Pixar.
Yeah, it didn't feel like.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It felt like a DreamWorks movie. But
Yeah,
maybe I'm just thinking that because of How to Train Your Dragon. They kind of look the same.
They do kind of aesthetically look very
yeah.
similar, yeah. And she's like in the kilt and
Yeah.
the red hair and everything. But to get back to like Dory, like I feel like it definitely fits into the whole like modern Pixar films.
But they're just kind of lackluster.
Yeah, they're almost like
they're not terrible movies.
Yeah, they're almost like
not...
they're almost like what DreamWorks was last decade. Like DreamWorks is nothing anymore, and like Pixar is what DreamWorks was 10 years ago.
They're all just kind of unoriginal.
Yeah,
I guess they're all piggybacking really heavily off the originals.
Yeah, Dory. I guess I mean, like naturally, organically, I feel like that would be the next story you were gonna tell. Like if you look at the Nemo universe, look at the characters, it does make sense to do something like that, right?
yeah, because you can't have Nemo get kidnapped.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are you gonna
plot.
do? Like, you don't want to introduce a new character to lead the plot. Like, it makes sense. Like, the movie has to be
Like
somewhat
if you're gonna make
geared
a
about,
sequel, that's the only sequel you can.
Yeah,
do,
about
is
Dory. So, but I guess one, it was an execution problem. Two, maybe they should have done it in the first place. But it is not so bad that I wouldn't have watched it. But I will say that part of the reason why I think it's a one-timer is because Nemo was so good. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, I go back and watch it because, I remember loving Finding Nemo. Automatically, I'm pretty much already sold, you know? And that's probably one way that they're thinking, of course.
No, I think you're completely right. And I think this film, like, it's one of those things, like, you raised a very good point. Like, if you're going to do a sequel, that's the only direction you can go, is Dory. But, like, I don't know. I feel like this is, like, categorized in the same kind of, like, realm of other films where it's, like, should you do that sequel? Like, a sequel to, like, Big Lebowski, right?
Oh, no.
Like, you can't do a sequel to Big Lebowski. No, there's not. But, like, what would a sequel to Big Lebowski be, right? It wouldn't be anything.
Yeah.
And, like, Finding Nemo, it's the same thing where it's, like, yeah, Dory makes sense, but, like, it's the same. We're recycling a lot of the same beats that we got from Nemo, and like not really adding anything overall.
I think that it is a one-timer though because they did bring in like Ty Burrell and Ed O'Neill, and you know they're fun new characters. And for me, the humor was all right. You know, I did laugh. It didn't fall flat for me, and so I think by bringing in new characters, they kept it kind of fresh. You know, I think it's worth seeing for that.
Yeah. That's a good point. A lot of the octopus and the whale,
the seals,
were
pretty
like
funny.
they were all pretty good additions. They probably could have been used a little bit more, I guess, in better ways. Well, I mean, the octopus was in it for a good amount, but yeah, no, that's a good point.
Well, I mean, like, how do you think this compares to other sequels by Pixar?
It's a good question. Excluding Toy Story 2 and 3, I feel like. Because we know that those are pretty good movies. Like, I really like those movies. So they don't fall in that vein of the bad Pixar sequels. But honestly, it's probably one of the better ones.
It is.
You think it's better than Monsters University and Cars 2 and 3?
I think it's better.
Okay. I never saw Cars 2 and 3.
Two, I don't know. They were okay. They weren't terrible. I don't know. People really hated 2. I didn't hate it as much as everybody else. I actually just watched 3 not that long ago, just because I never watched it. It was okay. It was story problems, but
I believe it.
I liked it more than I liked it more than Dory. I was more interested in watching it because at least like the story in Cars 3, they're talking about McQueen getting too old to race, which I found a lot more interesting than Dory going to find her family, even though she already found a family. So,
I think that's the biggest fault with this film with Finding Dory is like, she has the family. Like that's the whole point of the first film is like, you make your new family, right? Like all these so many Disney films have it where if you've lost your family, the whole plot is like you can build a new family even if you're not like either A, like not romantically involved with them, or B, like not actually tangibly related to them, right? It's like Yeah, like the brave little toaster, right? Like
Oh.
they're a family. They're a family, right? But like, you know, they're not actually blood related.
Yeah.
I mean, they all serve a purpose.
Appliance related.
Yeah, allegedly. Or whatever they
I
are.
love that movie. The poor little flower. I always. The little flower. It's so depressing when he dies.
I wonder if anybody
Anyways.
from that movie had anything to do with this one. Because, you know, the guy that directed Finding Dory, he directed Nemo. He's been around,
Okay.
like, all these films for years. Like, the
Yeah.
same guy. Like, I looked up, like, his, like, co-directing and directing credits. Like, he was involved. He was the co-director of A Bug's Life. He was one of the writers, I think, on one of the Toy Stories. He did the first Nemo.
Wow.
And he kind of just seems like a corporate whore. Like, I mean, after doing Nemo, it's just like, dude, like, you create Finding Nemo, and then, like, I don't know, man, you just come back years later. Like, it just seemed like a little desperate.
He probably didn't look at it that way.
Well, you didn't think of himself as a corporate whore?
Well, he's probably excited to make the movie. I hope.
I don't know, man.
I don't know, man.
Well, the movie was, it said nothing. I don't know. It just said nothing. Like,
Yeah, it had problems. Although, little baby Dory was really cute.
She was pretty cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, like, isn't that stuff, like, really easy? Like, making things that are already, like you take big things and you make the small, cute version of them. Like,
Yeah,
isn't that
that's
kind of
pandering.
easy?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
I mean, I like it. I'm just looking for the reasons why it's a one-timer.
Well, one of my bigger problems with it is that, how do I say this? It doesn't seem like it's very relatable for most people. Where the first one, I feel like, you know, struggling fathers can relate with Marlon and, you know, his issues. Whereas in Finding Dory, it's really her own story, and I feel like it'd be difficult to place yourself within that because I personally don't know anyone that suffers from short-term memory loss who has lost their family. I don't know. It's just not really relatable for most people, and so it's hard to gauge what you're supposed to learn or take away from the movie. You just don't really gain much.
Like, were they trying to talk about that, do you think, in the movie? Like, I don't know if that was, like, a thing.
It doesn't seem like it was a super serious issue. It just...
So like it was a plot convenient point.
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's what I was going
plot
to say.
device, huh?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
it was like the guys that did Finding Nemo, they had just watched Memento. He said, how can we add a fish to this story?
Yeah, because she would just get flashbacks whenever it was convenient to push the movie along. It seemed, you know, they were just like little clues that would come to her at the perfect time.
Yeah, I think the triggers could have been more creative. Like, the way that they got triggered and what it meant to her, like, on a deeper emotional level, maybe, it could have been a little special. But, yeah, they were just kind of there, and then they would go to the next point there, and go to the next point.
Yeah, it just sort of lacked depth, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk a little bit more
Despite it
about...
being
Like,
in the ocean.
yeah, that's true. Do you want to talk more about why you thought it was, like, hectic? Like how would you, like, what did that, like, what were things in your mind that just felt like you're like, I'm just being, like, overloaded?
So she gets into the ocean and she finds her family, but that still leaves Marlon and Nemo that are stuck in the truck. So then she devises this convoluted way to get into the truck with Hank, and they get Marlon and Nemo escape in the pail with the crazy bird, and then the doors close and they're trapped in there, and there's one point where Hank is driving the truck and he's an octopus, and just so much happens in the last 10 or 20 minutes that it's really unnecessary, and I had no idea when it was going to end. I didn't know when, you know, the climax was, what it was supposed to be, until it finally ended, you know, and at that point I was still waiting for more things to happen, and so I was just sort of stuck on the edge of my seat, and then when it was over, I didn't feel a ton of, like, resolution from that.
You raise really good points, because something that I find interesting is all of that, what you just described, comes after, she meets the parents. And I think that's one of the biggest problems, is you have this long sequence to something that takes place after what the whole movie was leading up to, was her fighting her parents. I mean, that should have been the true climax, and then after that should have been the reestablishing of the status quo, and that should have been how the movie ended. And the truck thing should have been intertwined with her or something. It shouldn't have been the way that it happened. It wasn't organic, that's for sure.
Yeah, and her parents were just sort of present for all of that. They didn't really help.
Watching.
Yeah.
So they can comment, and I'm like, but the movie was about her finding her parents, and now why do we need a climax after that?
To to reestablish, I guess, that Marlin and Nemo are still her family, that they still matter. But
Yeah.
even then, it should have been incorporated.
Yeah, it's too jumbled.
Yeah.
Also, too, it's like it's just so fantastical. Like, I mean, octopuses
Oh,
driving
gosh.
cars, like
Yeah.
otters like overtaking a bridge to stop traffic. Like,
Well,
the first one didn't have those elements.
but think about this. It worked really good in Toy Story 1 when the toys were driving the car. So why can't we accept an octopus driving a car? We accept toys.
I literally like
It's because the toys, since they're alive, it's already really fantastical.
when Kylie was
Yeah.
describing the octopus driving a car, the first thing I thought was like, dude, they copied themselves.
Yeah.
Dude, like you copied, like you did it 20 years ago with the
Yeah.
toys.
But that scene's so good in Toy
What-
Story.
Is that
Yeah.
With the little aliens? It's where you meet the aliens, right? Aren't
Isn't
they
that
like...
the second one? Or the, yeah. It just seemed like a Toy Story 2 when they did it. It's like they copied themselves like 15 years later when they do in Finding Dory. Like, you've already had these things that shouldn't be driving a car, right?
Well, the big difference is, too, that in Toy Story, the toys are alive. There's already that huge suspension of disbelief. Whereas, Finding Nemo, supposedly they're just fish, And it could be real life, air quotes. But,
It's true. Yeah. There are octopuses in our world and not talking toys.
yeah.
As far as we know.
Yeah, no, that's very... Yeah, I agree with you. I always assumed that, like, like, a Toy Story is not our world at all. But, like, Nemo could actually be our world. Like...
Exactly.
But I guess Pixar, they kind of do that a lot, though, where, like, they kind of, like, blend. Like, like Monsters, Inc., right? Like, that takes place in our world, right?
Yeah. It's a corporation and then a university. It's very much our
Well, I
world.
mean-
they drive cars.
No, I meant like the
Literally.
human
Oh,
world
wait,
in Monsters,
yeah.
Inc.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, that's, like, it's supposed to be our world.
They can
yeah.
get into our world. They do get into our world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, Dory, it just, it just seems so, like, just kind of like, you look at, like, the cast, like, who's in it, and, like, you see all these cameos, and, Sigourney Weaver being talked about, like, I don't know, like, it just, I don't know. There was no heart to this movie, I think, ultimately. Like, I think that's the big difference between this and Nemo was, like, Nemo has the heart. There's the scenes where, like, you're watching it and, you might get, like, a little teary-eyed and you're like, oh, it's so sad, blah, blah, blah. And this, it's like, I never felt like that at all in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I never, in my mind, I always knew she was going to find the parents. And, like, she was going to end up back in the community with Marlin and Nemo,
Yeah, and the problem with a character that can't remember anything is it makes it hard to make it emotional, I suppose, because it's not this huge moment for her. It's, for a long time she totally forgot about them.
Yeah, right.
So it's hard to have a big moment emotionally wise with that.
That's true. Because she didn't start, like, I mean, the movie has, like, different things where she's, like, remembering the parents, but the fact that you didn't see any of that in Nemo, yeah, it doesn't make it special in the second movie.
No, it does not. I guess...
It was a sad story, that she didn't have her parents, but...
Well, I guess in Finding, the third movie is going to be Crush looking for that little baby turtle son of his, right? It's going to be Crush and Squirt.
Finding Crush.
Yeah.
Crush and Crush.
Finding
Crush and
Squirt.
Squirt. Yeah.
Yeah, Squirt.
That's what they're going to...
Oh, yeah,
that's the
Squirt's
next
the little
one, right?
guy,
Yeah. That's
should-
the only...
they-
that's
you
the
know what?
third possibility, right?
No, they should change it. Dory, Martin, and Crush should all go missing, and it should be the little guys who have to go find them.
I also
that's
put
what
Marlon
Nemo and
Martin.
Squirt.
Yeah, Nemo, Squirt, and... Oh, there is no baby
Their
Dory.
little class.
Yeah. The little ones should go find the big ones. Well, maybe Dory can count as a kid. I don't
So
know.
when it's
Yeah.
2029,
silly,
we'll
but-
see that sequel.
Yeah.
The third entry.
People would watch it. I'd go
course I
watch
would.
Squirt. I love little Squirt.
He didn't even know his name.
I was thinking...
I think you're thinking of the soda, too.
Nobody likes that soda.
Does
Does anybody drink Squirt anymore? I mean, it's on the shelves, but does anybody drink it?
Allegedly, somebody must.
They just put it there so you know not to get it.
Like it's a placeholder.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we're stocked, but there's Coke, so...
It's like Shasta, root beer. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, who buys that?
Shasta,
This is a totally weird digression.
it is.
I guess we'll just end it, I guess.
Just cap it there.
All right, well, thanks for listening to this episode. Next time, we're going to talk about Avatar, the James Cameron movie.